So that's the post-employment, the OPEB piece. What are your thoughts as far as maintenance projects, and then the 4K startup piece?
Well, why do you have to assign a fund balance on the 4K startup?
I just thought it would be.
You're gonna put it to assigned fund balance?
Yes.
Why not just leave it in regular, you're just running a deficit balance, what's the difference? I mean, the same thing, whether it's fund balance assigned or not assigned, it's still a deficit, right?
That's true. The reason why is I just thought it'd be good to show the community that we've got the money, we put it aside, and it's designated, and it's not gonna be a tax burden.
Yeah, well,
Makes
that's,
sense.
I agree with that. I also think
Yeah.
keeping the Chromebook and
Because that's
iPad
one
in there
of
makes
the
sense
negatives was
also.
it's gonna cost us money.
Mhm.
And now we can
I
say,
mean,
no, it's not gonna cost.
to me, an
it's gonna
assigned
cost us
fund
money, but
balance
it's
is
already
for
money that we
future
have.
large projects, not current running projects, you know what I mean? That's why they called it assigned, because you couldn't just keep rolling over a huge fund balance that you had no reasoning for. I mean, if this is, we're in the current year for the Chromebooks and iPads, putting into a fund balance, take it right back out away, that's assigned, doesn't really make much sense, but whatever, I mean, call it whatever you want to, it's in the fund balance.
I thought part of that, when we voted on it, while it was the 13-14 school year, when we voted on it, we couldn't place the money there then because we weren't gonna be using them at that time. We had to allocate it for the future, so
That's
we're kind
true.
of in that middle time right
That's
now,
true.
right?
Yes.
Is the way to look at it. So that's right, that's just where I thought it was coming from when we voted and agreed upon it.
Well, it's just coming out of the fund
Should we be
balance.
setting,
If we,
money aside for
truthfully,
the,
it was supposed to be coming out
the
of
new
whatever the
ones
budget is
coming up,
for
because they are gonna be
technical.
replaced in a couple of years.
I mean, I'm fine with it staying in there and having it come out of there.
Well,
Yeah.
theoretically, if we have it come out of,
Because you replace
out
them,
of
you
here,
replace both glasses at the
we
same
don't
time.
use the money in the tech department budget because there are no replacements or anything. That's all gonna end up in the fund balance anyway, correct?
Well, what I wanna look at, I wanna see then what tech department's gonna have for the reasoning for their fund, because as far as I can see, if you're gonna put it in like this, the tech department budget's gonna be brought down because there's no big ticket items.
Okay. I'll have Ken put together a list, and
Yeah.
I'll have it for you.
What I wanna see
For
is
Monday.
last year's and what was assigned for all these large ticket items, and what this next year one is, but there should be a sizable reduction, I would think.
I understand your thinking.
Yeah.
I do.
I mean, it's gonna
I
come
get
out
it.
of one hand or the other,
Okay.
it's kind of irrelevant.
All right, I'll have Cannon put together a simple thing for you on that. All right.
Yeah.
Now, the last thing that I did not cover on this sheet, okay? On this sheet was the Fund 39 transfer. The Fund 39, that's our debt service fund. And basically in very, very, very rough, early, simple projections, with the state aid increase, the unexpected state aid increase that we're looking at for fiscal year 14-15, assigning or transferring some of our surplus from Fund 10 into Fund 39 to start paying down
The fund balance quicker,
the debt sooner.
I like that.
And the other thing we could do, to try and keep as close to zero levy increase for this year, is to have money set aside in Fund 39. Does that make sense to you?
Because then we can say Fund 39 is less. I would be in favor of that. What I'm looking to do is take some of this and reduce the current local tax levy.
So the easiest way to do that, would be,
Pre-fund 39.
yes,
Right, put a lower
Right.
number on there.
right,
I don't have a problem with that. I don't know that 50,000 is enough out of this.
okay.
If you're gonna take 466 over here, I'd rather have 100 to 150 if pre-funded in the transfer.
Now we're taking it off 322. 322,
Yeah, I know, but originally it was gonna be,
He's taking, you could take off this 144
right, that's what.
yeah.
and add that to the 50, so you'd have quite a bit in there.
That's why I'd rather have at least 150 in that one, because I'd much rather, if we're getting extra money, here's the thing I don't understand, and this is the funny thing about the state numbers, yeah, they all look good on a piece of paper, but when the real number comes, there's not much you can do about it.
Right.
Why is it that we're getting an increase when there was no real increase except for, what was it, 75 a kid? At the state level, and we should be on the second year of a large downturn in our annualized numbers, right?
And we are.
Mm-hmm.
And how is it that we got this huge increase?
Yeah.
We should have been down a couple 100,000, right? So maybe we have 300 difference on there.
Don't question the gift horse.
I can tell you, the other superintendent I spoke with was equally surprised that we both.
Yeah. Don't mind getting the extra funds. They show up magically and you can look at the numbers, but they don't match what reality should be.
So anyway, my goal was with that Fund 39 piece is to, as I told you just a couple minutes ago, is to pay down the debt service a little bit more quickly, but also to try and alleviate the levy burden, the tax levy in the upcoming.
We're not paying the debt service down more quickly, it's just transferring to Fund 39.
If we do it the way you were describing, I agree.
Right?
Right.
It's just that we're pre-funding the 39, we don't have to take as much out of the local tax levy for the 39, right?
Right.
So I would say 150 is what I would think on there would be a nice round even number to put under that one.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
So I'm gonna re-summarize, just so we've got it all together here. 322, 253 for OPEB, for that chunk of 13, pay-as-you-go type. Nothing on that group of 48s. And Dan said, send you guys an updated list.
Okay, Will, with that in mind, are you giving us another piece of paper eventually that's gonna show the OPEB transfer on the
Sure.
leftovers, which you said was what,
85.5.
185.5?
And that's
Okay,
actually on your expense sheet.
on the final under?
Yeah. And it's in red, so it's like the third or fourth line item down.
Oh, yeah.
But I savings.
Okay. And then basically you said leave the 204 for maintenance projects. We can start working on the Evergreen Boiler project, getting some bids on that. I'm unclear what we want to do about the 4K piece, as far as that 350.
I could leave it up there.
You can assign it or unassign, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, if you assign something and start spending it right away, it really is, kind of defeats the purpose of an assigned fund balance. If you're gonna use it for current usage, it's really not an assigned fund balance.
But it's actually.
Okay, here's what that should be, that should be, I'm saving 15,000 a year for that building, for this project, because I know it's gonna cost 150K in whatever, 10 years. It should be you're saving 50 grand a year because you know it's gonna cost $500,000 for a roof. And every year, a certain amount for each project goes in here, and you got a little Excel spreadsheet that tells you each assignment and how much money is sitting there and why it's sitting there. But doing it for things like a Chromepad or Chromebook, which is already purchased, but just has to be costed out to a different time, is not assigning it for a future use of that nature, you know? I understand what you're saying by telling people you've got the funds. You're gonna tell the people you got the funds anyway, it's coming out of the fund balance. But that's what the original intent of the assigned fund balance was, to force people to say, this is why we're storing up this money in there. So whether you call it assign and spend it right away,
You have to remember though, when we approved those 2 tech projects,
yep,
we didn't know what we were getting from state aid.
I understand that.
You know, and I guess
Yeah.
I want to be overly cautious and say, you know, we
Yeah, yeah.
designate fund balance,
But even
because
if
we
you
knew we were
took-
running a surplus.
But even if you took 300 out of the 800 some thousand we're rolling, would still be fine, right?
Yeah.
So, that's just, I think, I'd like to see this board get with the idea that the assigning of the fund balance is for big ticket items,
Okay.
you know?
So putting so much away for the boiler, the flat roofs and everything else.
It should be that entire sheet that you've got there, spread it out over how many years you're gonna do
Well,
it,
you can
and
place
divide it out. and-
Ballpark figures, so you
On
can
the
start.
lights and stuff.
But
Lights,
for
and even
now,
the
are
flat
you
roof,
okay
the
with
boilers
this,
and
Dan?
that, so you can start putting so much away.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we know that what it's gonna cost us 350 on the 4K startup. Is that in, this year?
Next year.
15.
It's not actually, but some of those costs are going in this year, because you're gonna have to hire people in before the end of the year to get going,
Or
right?
at least order supplies and things.
So,
Yeah, you're gonna have some startup costs this year.
putting it in for a short-term, one-year thing, yeah, I guess why not? But it won't, yeah, you're gonna use some this year and then some next time around. I would anticipate we're gonna see something in the next year's budget, or this year's budget, for that. For some kind of numbers coming up, hiring people and training and all that business, so. Yeah, I mean, other than that, yep, so you're looking at 360, you're gonna call assigned. 360, or plus the 150 on there, so what's that come up to now?
We'll just we'll redo it and bring
Yeah.
it back
Okay.
and send it out to you.
And then there's the 44,000 difference
Right.
from the other,
144, yeah,
yeah, from the 144.
because that comes out to 322.2 on this one. So I would guess by looking at it, you're pretty close to what you were before, most likely, right?
Okay.
Is that it for that one?
It is. Thanks for the discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this document here, I think, should be what we kind of centered on. But
That's what we started a few years ago, when cell phones,
Yeah.
and then we got away from it, and then they were supposed to have that program that's supposed to
Yeah.
help us out, that really didn't help us out.
Yeah.
no, this is the Fund 39 is the debt service. This is what we should have coming out of B&G every year. These are our big ticket items, and it says what is right here. This is what we anticipate the cost will be on this day, whatever. We should have some kind of costing in here for what.
For what the,
Correct, so
everything
you
else
can
is,
kind of
yeah.
extrapolate what a future 3 years is, right? But at least we can say, okay, take all of these, add them all up, divide out by the number of years, figure out each one separately, add up the number at the bottom of the line, what each year is going to cost. And that's what should be put into the assigned fund balance for buildings and grounds projects.
Right.
So when we get to the point of saying, oh, well, we need new boilers over at Evergreen, well, you got the money waiting there, right? So then you make your determination, are you gonna spend it now, or do you need a roof? Is the roof having any issues? Well, we get 5 more years out of it, then you just let the money sit there.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't have to ever collect any more money for that.
And that's what I wanted to do when we first started, you couldn't do it, because I said at the time, the village used to do that for fire trucks and ambulances. They
Yeah.
put so much away a year, and the way destruction was at that time, they said you couldn't do it, but things have changed now, which, it's nice to have the money sitting there so you can plan ahead.
Well, you could never do a savings account is what it was.
Right.
All right, the other piece I would just add on or finalize our conversation with is with the updates that are on these sheets. Okay, there'll be an action item coming to the full board for a budget amendment,
Okay.
another budget revision, okay? Just so you know that. We were gonna talk about the annual meeting date. September 22nd, what do you think about that?
When's the high school stand? August?
I say we start moving it closer to the high school.
Yeah,
The only
we're
reason we ever moved it out is because somebody wanted to see, well, Paul wanted to see the 3rd week numbers for students, and it's kind of irrelevant to the process. It's not like you're jumping down by 100 students or jumping up by 100 students. So I failed to see the reasoning on it. We look at the student count all the time for whether we have to keep a session or reduce a session. So,
So we have it September this year, and then maybe move it to
Yeah,
August
I'd
next
say
year.
We just need to know long enough in advance so we can chunk out our workload.
I could say, yeah, September this year would sound good.
yeah, because I'd rather see it where people have the ability to come in and they don't have to worry about their kids having schoolwork and all the other business. School hasn't started.
Sounds like a winner.
Let them come in and talk about the school district without having to worry about the school running already. I guess my theory on it.
I'm fine with September 22nd.
You okay, September 22nd?
And then we usually pick a date.
Yeah.
We usually
Why,
pick
you
a
going
date
in
at the
August?
annual meeting then for
There's no
next year
way I
anyway.
would be ready.
And that way we can move it to
Or
August.
we
What's
may
next
board
month?
discretion.
Yeah.
We have
Not
auditors.
this year. Yeah, I'm talking
Well,
next
in the
year.
future, yeah.
If we do that.
Not this
September
year.
this year, but maybe August next year to sort of tie it in.
I'd say when people are already in the mindset of the high school district, get them in the mindset at the elementary, just bang, bang, right in a row, same week, you know?
High school has nobody show up.
Right.
Yeah, they might show up more, but,
This year they might.
yeah.
So that'll be an action item then next week.
Okay.
The annual meeting piece, okay?
To shoot for what date?
The 22nd.
22nd for this year.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, I guess I should have asked, you'll be in town for that? Okay, good. All right, the only other informational items I've got, next, at our meeting next week, there'll be some parent transportation contracts coming for parochial schools.
Okay, like we
Just,
usually have.
Like you usually have. They
Like the
just-
one in Big Bend and,
Right.
okay.
They're just coming a little bit earlier, which is good. And then I'm thinking in August, we're gonna have to make a more formal approval of lunch prices, but I wanna talk to Taher one more time.
Okay.
It looked like, they based the proposal on maybe going up a dime per lunch at the most, but I just wanna finalize that.
Okay, but what I'm looking for again is now that we don't have And then we take that out of the Fox River Middle School's handbook. We don't have any, USDA has no jurisdiction over our hot lunch program at all.
Right.
Yes, I remember you
Okay.
picking that out.
So we can discriminate, which is what intelligent people do in this world. They discriminate against the needs of a small child against a large child. And we
I would
used to
say
do this.
differentiate rather than discriminate. I just
Yeah.
think the word is-
Yeah, that's a better wording of it.
Unfortunately, the word discriminate in the Webster Dictionary still means the same thing it has for
But-
300 years.
I don't think that's what I took that section is kind of talking about. I think that was more talking about discriminated with race.
Yeah,
versus.
So what you're saying,
like,
additional
meal
cheaper price
sizes
than
and
it
Yeah,
than the
kind of
they
two
wouldn't be
different conver-
available
We
for
understand,
lunch
I understand that
versus-
too, but as soon as you do that, somebody will say, oh, no, you can't discriminate for any reason. No, it doesn't say that, there's no law on that. And we have no reason not to be intelligent and say, smaller children need less food, larger children need more food, and let Topper know that. We used to do that for 50 years in this district with no issue at all.
Yeah.
And then they came along and said, oh, no, everything's gotta be equal and everybody's gotta pay the same, which makes no sense. So let Topper know we're looking to get back to what the normal would
Tiered
be.
pricing.
Yeah,
Okay.
But I guess what has been their experience, because I think even when you're talking about younger kids, even, I mean, food intake isn't something for us to judge that a second grader should have this and,
yeah, no, you would assume that,
right.
but yet the USDA can find any kind of person in the world that would write a book about it and say, no, they
First
should
trip's
get
not gonna eat
the same.
this.
But I just wonder what Topper's experience has been with
Yeah.
other programs that are out of the
We used to
program
use
and what they've
intelligence running
served.
it, and then all of a sudden the government tried taking it over.
After watching my grandkids.
He being Jim from Tucker had mentioned, would I be open to tiered pricing?
Yeah,
Because smaller quantity amounts for the younger kids.
Sure.
And
Which makes perfect
I
sense.
said, absolutely, because it makes sense.
Right.
So I know that it was going through his head to.
yeah, so let's go down that path at least, now that we have the ability to do that.